This question says, use the graph to answer the following questions. The first question says, where does f of x equal g of x? That's at the solution point where they intersect, and so that's -4, -6. When you write this, make sure you do parentheses so that it's a coordinate. Then it says, to answer the following questions, you should create an explicit function for the graph. So what is f of -2 plus g of -2? Remember, this is a y-coordinate. So the y-coordinate plus the other y-coordinate. You don't actually have to create an equation for this. I'm going to show you how to do it both ways. So f of -2 is the coordinate -2 blank. And you're going to add it to the other coordinate, -2 blank, for the other line. So I'm going to write the two coordinates. -2, 0 is one of them. And then the other one's -2, -5. So we're going to add those, and we're going to get -5. Let me show you how to do it with an equation. The first line, the red one, the equation for that one is it has a slope of 3. So up 3, right 1. So it's y equals 3x. And then it goes through 0, 6. So it's going to be plus 6. The other one is a slope of 1/2, up 1, right 2. So it's y equals 1/2 x plus -4. So that's where it goes to right there. So now I've got my two equations. If I want to find f of 2 and g of -2, then I plug them in. So this is a longer way, but it totally works. So if I do f of -2, I get 3 times -2 plus 6. And then g of -2 is going to be 1/2 times -2 minus 4. And then I'm going to add those together, but I'm going to evaluate them first. And I'm going to get -4 plus 6 is 2. And then this is going to be -5. So 3 times -2 is -6 plus 6, that's 0, sorry. And this is -5, which is what I got before, 0 and -5. So my answer is 0 plus -5 plus -5. So neither one of those methods is super easy. I would recommend not doing an equation unless you absolutely have to. Instead, just look at the graph. On the next one, let's just look at the graph. So what is g of 4 minus f of 4? So we have to remember, is that an x-coordinate they're asking us or a y-coordinate? If you're plugging in something, you're asking for a y-coordinate when x is 4. So we're going to go to where x is 4, and we're going to look at the two y-coordinates. When x is 4, we have 4, -2 here. And then when x is 4, we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 18. So on this one, 18 and -2 are our coordinates. But we have to figure out which one are we subtracting from which one. Is it red subtract blue or blue subtract red? So let's go down and look at it. G of 4 minus f of 4, that's blue minus red. So our coordinate, our equation here, blue minus red, is going to be -2 minus 18, should be -20. All right, so g of 4 minus f of 4 was -20. This was -5. And state the interval where g of x is greater than f of x. See, this is an interesting one. An interval is x coordinates. So we're going to go back up here and say, when is the blue line greater? It looks at first glance like it's from -7 to -4. That's when it's greater. And since we're doing x coordinates, but really it doesn't stop. So we're going to say it's -infinity, the interval. Interval notation is when we have a parentheses. The lowest coordinate is -infinity for our x coordinates. And then it stops being bigger right over here at this point where they intersect. And the x-coordinate for that is -4. So that's the interval where g of x is greater. All right, let's do another one. These are definitely taking some getting used to. Okay, use the graph to answer the questions. Where do they equal each other? Well, that's easy. That's the point where they cross. So that is looking like it's about -6 and -3 on that one. And then we want to know what is f of -4 plus g of -4. Remember, this is a y-coordinate. This is a y-coordinate. We're saying what are the y-coordinates at -4? So I'm going to go over here to -4 and look. And it looks like, ooh, that's a little tricky. At -4, -1, 2, 3, 4. This one's 1. So the red is 1. But the blue looks like it's a decimal, and it looks like it's -2/3. So I'm going to say -0.66. And I could make an equation to plug it in, but I'm going to just let you guys eyeball it a little bit here. So -0.66. And I'm going to add those. So I'm going to get 0.33 at that point. And it's going to be positive because one of them was a +1. Oh, I got to check this again. So if this is 0 and this is 4, I think it's -1.33. So I'm pretty sure it's hard to see on these graphs. So that means if this is -1.33, then my answer is -0.33. It'll give you a slight tolerance for error if you're estimating. So let's see what it said, -0.66. So we have to be careful on that and maybe zoom in a little bit better. At -4, this one was 1, and this one was -1.66, which made it, when you added them, it made it -0.66. All right, so g of 1 minus f of 1, these are y-coordinates, and we're going to subtract them. So let's go over to find the y-coordinates when x is 1. So here's x is 1 right here. And we could do equations, but I think it's just going to be easier just to look here. The y-coordinates are, the red one's going to be easy. It's 11. The blue one, I think it's like 1.8. I'm going to go 1.8, and if we get it wrong, we got to go do an equation. I think 1.8 is probably close. So now we're going to subtract them, and it wants us to subtract red from blue. So 1.8 minus 11. So what we're going to do. It's going to give us -9.2. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, I think it would have accepted it. Would have been close enough. And it would have been fine. All right, so the interval where the g of x is greater, it's going to be -infinity all the way up to -6. So -infinity to -6. We never get to -infinity, so we do an open parentheses for that. And -6 is also an open parentheses because right at that dot, they're equal. One of them is not greater than the other. All right, then we've got some review questions. Let's do a quick one here. Discrete or continuous? Distance since the day began. We measure distance. We count discrete. So we measure continuous. We count discrete. If they'd said the number of steps, that would have been discrete because you could count them, but it's distance, so we're measuring it. It could be 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch, and so that is continuous. So, and I will pause there.